We had ourselves a Glock day recently. It was an idea of Maddy's, and we took my 4 Glocks and 2 of hers out to the range. We had very early Glock 21, Maddy's Glock 43, my 19 folder, 17, and 34. We both shot them, just kind of gave our impressions after spending some time with them. Now, of course, none of these Glocks are stock, so I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction before each one of them. The 2 that I don't have here to show you are Maddy's Glock 21 and her Glock 43. Let's get started.
All right, so I decided that we were going to do a Glock day today. So we have several different Glocks. Kind of the kicker is though that aside from the Glock 43, they all have modifications, different barrels, different triggers, different sights. None of them are going to be stock aside from this one. So the whole purpose of the Glock day is more or less just to kind of see things that you like, things that you don't like, differences in size, differences in, aesthetics, differences wherever you find them. It's just a fun day. So starting with the Glock 43, we're going to be putting 5 rounds downrange. Okay, sorry, are we good? All right, so thoughts on the Glock 43. It's a snappy gun. It always has been. It's actually though quite accurate. I feel like I jump more, like I have more of a recoil with it, but I actually have better accuracy when I'm shooting it. I'm not a huge fan of the stock trigger. And I'm really not a huge fan of Glock stock sights in general. But overall, I actually really do like my Glock 43. It's a reliable gun. It is for the most part, steady gun. And it's actually an accurate gun. It's easy to carry.
Glock 43. When these came out, I wasn't a fan just because I think they're a little too light and a little snappy, but it's been a while since I've shot one. Let's see. Still quite snappy, little small for my hand, but the trigger actually for some reason doesn't bother me today.
This Glock 19 is stock, save the folding from full conceal. When this first came out, I thought it was a pretty cool idea. A lot of people loved it, a lot of people mocked it, decided to give it a try. And in an earlier video, or 2 or 3, I proved that this concept is actually quite brilliant, and that it's no slower to draw than most holster style things, draws. It just takes some training and getting used to it. Once you do though, it gives you another option, another way to carry. As far as the feel when shooting it, yes, the trigger is different. You've got a metal trigger that's flat faced, and then this little bit of gap around here. The gap you hardly feel at all. My fingers actually fit the groove simply because the full conceal trigger guard comes up high enough for me to get my middle finger in there. So that issue that I had with my own standard Glock 19 frame is no longer a problem with the full conceal.
So this is a gun I've wanted to try for a very long time. It is the Glock 19 by Full Conceal folding Glock, which is highly innovative. It has a 21+1 capacity, so the purpose behind it is to give you the largest capacity in the smallest package. Obviously, because it folds, it is a lot more compact, easy to conceal, and really convenient in the sense that literally all you have to do is that. When it is in the folded frame, it is inoperable, incapable of shooting, so you can keep one in the barrel when it is in the folded frame, and then when you fold it like that, you are ready to go. Just like that.
The full Conceal Glock 19. This is surprisingly comfortable to shoot, even though it's still got the Gen 3 finger grooves, which don't work for me on a lot of guns. The trigger guard has been changed for that folding mechanism, which lets me get my fingers higher, and I can actually get into the grooves now, which is pretty neat. You do feel a bit of recoil kicking through the heel here since it's so short on a large palm, but for as concealable as this is, I think that's a worthy compromise.
So the Glock 19 that you see us using is my first Glock and was my second handgun. Carried this for a while when it was bone stock. Then, like most Glock owners, began modifying it piece by piece to get it closer to what I wanted to shoot. And before I knew it, I had something that was okay shooting, but it cost me a lot of money and was perhaps no longer safe for carry. Modification of this, all of the internals. What you see in the bottom here is the L2D Combat mag well. This is an earlier version, but you notice it doesn't hang into the well itself. That's on the gun already. L2D slide and barrel, of course, stand out quite a bit. Love those. Got a Ranger proof trigger on here. My problem with the 19 has always been, if you watch my fingers, that I don't line up with the finger grooves. I line up with the finger rises. My hands are just a little bit too big for it. Now this is a Gen 3, and I don't believe mag wells are necessary. I have this one on here because it keeps my hand clear of the magazine as I insert. Before, without that, I would often smash my finger or pinch my finger or hand between the pistol and the magazine. You'll see a demonstration of that. Let's take a look.
Glock 19. So this is actually surprisingly light. This is a very light gun, but the recoil actually is pretty manageable. More than anything though, I love the sight, the fiber optic sight that is there. It makes it really easy to see the target.
So this is a Glock 19 with an L2D Combat slide and barrel, also their mag well. The trigger, I believe, is Ranger proof. Haven't shot this guy in a while. Slide didn't lock back because there's the rest of my thumb on it. Happens, I've got banana hands. Trigger's got kind of some squish to it, but the reset was very nice and crisp. I don't know if you could hear it on the microphone, but it kicks right out to that, little spring pops and lets you know it's ready for the next one.
The Glock 17 we have to show you is a Gen 3 basic frame. All the internals are basic. This was one that I bought frame only and then filled with your essential internals without doing any modifications. The slide, however, is quite different. This is an older slide from Lone Wolf Distributors. This is when they first started doing some cool custom type jobs. You see they took a lot of weight out of the slide, which helps this compensator still work. My concern with this, and we experienced it while shooting a couple times, is if you notice this imperfection in the Glock frame, that swell there, it kind of dips down and comes back up, was that the compensator was going to make contact with the frame while the gun cycled. It doesn't appear to when I manipulate manually. However, we did occasionally have some malfunctions with any slightly limp wristing, or if you've got a softer load in here, like for example not so hot load or a load with less energy in it, then the gun would sort of short stroke. The spring is incredibly stiff. It is a factory spring, but that compensator, I don't know if it's the weight on the end of it or the compensator doing its job. Regardless, one way or another, it does make this a very, very flat shooting pistol.
Glock 17. So for this particular firearm, I was doing some practice rounds with it earlier, just to warm up my shooting in general, and I was having issues with it ejecting, mostly because I was limp wristing really bad. But after some pointers and a little bit more practice, I actually was able to fluently fire the gun each round. And once that happened, it's a nice little gun. It has a compensator here on the end that you can see, so that was pretty much what was making it a more fluent gun, but also what was making my limp wristing have a negative effect.
Gen 3 Glock 17, this is a Lone Wolf Distributors slide and barrel and compensator. Compensator does add some extra weight to the end of the barrel, which means sometimes it's problematic. In fact, this gun, as it's currently set up, you either got to be really firm on the wrist or have some really hot ammo. Not 100% reliable with that extra weight on the end. The rest of the gun is bone stock. You can see there the 5th round didn't quite eject. That's because this ammo was maybe a little too soft for running this compensator on there, or maybe I was a little limp in the wrist. On these Gen 3s, just like the Glock 19, my fingers don't quite line up with the finger grooves, which is really annoying. What ends up happening is I end up compressing and squeezing right on the high points of those grips, and it makes it quite uncomfortable to shoot.
Next is a Gen 4 Glock 34. So I bought this gun when through the Blue Line purchase, which is a discount program for military, law enforcement, etc. And you can tell from the finish wear there on the end, I used this quite a bit in competition back when I used to compete. This is about the time I started to get out of Glocks. Just decided that I'd rather buy a gun that shot and felt the way I liked it out of the box, rather than spending the money on a Glock and then spending all the money on the parts. So the 34, of course, has the windowed slide up top, which helps lighten some things up. I've got some Trigicon sights. These are the U-notch style, which made for pretty quick acquisition. You can see that my tritium there is blown out, and that's from a ported barrel test that I did. The ports shot the fire right onto the front sight and wrecked it, unfortunately. But this one, I forget who made this barrel. Do have a stainless steel heavyweight recoil spring upgrade. All right, this is a Lone Wolf barrel. Tried a few different barrels, and it's back from my early days handgunning when I did all things Glock. Let's take a look how this guy performed for us.
Glock 34. I actually think I kind of like this one the best out of all of the 9 so far. Simply because it actually it has a good, well, actually first off, right when I picked it up, beaver tail right here. That is comfortable. That just fits right there in your hand. So that was literally the very first thought that came to my mind when I picked up the gun. Second thought would be, I like the sights that have been put on it. I like the recoil. I like the trigger. Glock 34, man, it's the way to go.
This is a Gen 4 Glock 34. This is the long slide, if you will. I know they made even longer ones. I use this in competition, and that's why I added the extra back strap, which gives it more of the vertical hold, if you will. It's not quite as wrist forward as the standard Glock grip. didn't lock back because my thumb was riding on the slide lock. It's what I tend to always do. This Gen 4 for me is much more comfortable. The extra weight up front makes it feel like there's less recoil, and of course the longer sight radius makes it easier to aim.
All right, so just for kind of funsies here at the end, we're gonna throw into the mix a Glock 21. This is actually a 45 caliber. And as Graham just noted to me, this has a California mag, which is 10 rounds.
Poor Californians.
I hate this gun in my prior shooting experience, so it also helped if I actually crack it. Ugh. Yeah, I still hate it.
I believe Gen 2, one of you Glockophiles can correct me, Glock 21 without the finger grooves on it and no rail on the dust cover. 45, of course. I gotta say, the recoil felt a bit more violent than most 45s, particularly when the slide maxed out at the end and made that connection at the end. I felt that little extra bump there, but did love the no finger grooves. For hands like mine that don't fit the Glock finger design, this is a much more comfortable way to go.
So this was just a fun day at the range. All the guns that we shot today, we've shot and or reviewed separately in the past. Just wanted to get some Glocks together and Glock it. I hope for the Glockophile this has satisfied some things, maybe caused you to ask some questions that may or may not be helpful to you. As far as dealing with those, comment down below if you want to know what's in any of these builds, or if you'd like to see anything special done with any of these. Most of them, like all these LTD parts and the full conceal, have been reviewed fully in the past. I don't think Lone Wolf Distributors is still doing this particular slide, but you can check with them. Maybe we can see if we can get a updated version of it. And of course the Glock 34 just has that ridiculously long sight radius that made shooting accurately easy. The longer barrel also providing a little more muzzle energy to make knock and steel over. That's why I moved to that guy. Also on the Gen 4, the finger nubs seem to fit my hand a little bit better. I don't know, maybe it's because I could put on that bigger back strap that the Gen 3s just didn't have. That was Glock Day. Thanks for watching.